All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll be started here in just a minute or so. Thanks for waiting. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get it started. Well, thank you everyone for joining. This is our February webinar. This one is about uptime calculations. This is the second in our series on becoming an expert with uptime.com. So just a few quick notes to get out of the way at the beginning. Um, all participants will be muted for the duration of the presentation, just to make sure that that's an easy presentation process from our side. We will have a Q&A chat to specifically field any questions you may have throughout the session. We will have some time at the end to answer those directly, and any questions submitted that we don't get to, we will be certain to follow up with in an email afterwards. So if you have a question, don't worry, we'll answer it. So yeah, I'll get started with a quick disclaimer. So again, this presentation may contain product features that are currently under development. This overview of new technology represents no commitment from Uptime.com to deliver these features in any generally available product. Features subject to change and must not be included in contracts, purchase orders, or sales agreements of any kind. Technical feasibility and market demand will affect final delivery, and pricing and packaging for any new technologies or features discussed or presented have not been determined. So thanks for letting me get that out of the way. Just need to dot some I's and cross some T's there. So let's get into it. For those of you that don't know me already, my name is Alex Brown. I'm on the customer success team here at Uptime.com, and I will be the presenter, the main host for today's webinar. I am also joined by my colleague Lucas from the support team, who will be getting into the details of uptime calculation and how that works here at Uptime.com. Moving on today, we have a pretty streamlined agenda. There will be a basic introduction that will be similar to what we did last time. And then for section 5, we will get into the actual meat and potatoes of how we calculate uptime at uptime.com. Here's a real quick overview of some of our team. Of course, our team is always expanding and it's much more than just these. But we have here some of our leadership team, some heads of key departments, and again, this is just a small percentage of the team. It takes a lot more than this just to keep this thing rolling. So moving on again. So here's a little bit about uptime at the high level. We like to consider ourselves the future of website monitoring. You know, we keep an ear to the ground in terms of trends, and we are always working to improve our reliability, improve the strength of our platform, and always look to push the edge as far as website monitoring and availability goes. We like to make it easy. We like to make it as simple as possible to get up and running, while also providing the tools for advanced users to get the most out of it. And with this approach that we have taken, we've found that a lot of different organizations across the world are happy to use our platform to partner with us to make sure that their websites are as available as possible. And to back all that up, we have an award-winning 24/7, 365 support team all around the globe. So whenever you have a question, whatever question that may be, we'll be able to answer it for you. All right. Moving on here, a little bit about what makes Uptime.com special, what we call the Uptime.com advantage. Uh, User experience is at the forefront of all of our development, all of our product design. We want to make sure that this is a straightforward and intuitive process. So visualizations are a key aspect of that, so you can see exactly what's going on. Beyond that, we also integrate with a wide variety of various DevOps tools. We want to make sure that our system aligns and is seamlessly integrated with whatever other tools you're already using. We don't expect anyone to only use our platform. Everyone has their own that they've got already in their stack. So we want to align ourselves with that as well. And finally, we provide a centralized reporting platform, single pane view, so you can see all of your data, all of your metrics from all your different systems. You can centralize that within the Uptime platform and make it a one-stop shop for anyone, either internal users or external ones, to know exactly where to look to find out how your systems are looking and how available they are. And finally, a little bit more about some of the things that make us unique. I won't read all of these individual pieces, but this is a bit of how we these are our core tenets that we aspire to. We're always working to maintain these things. These are at the forefront of all of our design principles, all of our development. And this is these are the tenets that we live by here at Uptime.com. I'll pause here for just a moment. If you guys have any questions, again, we do have the Q&A chat available for you. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Lucas, who will get into the details of how uptime is calculated here at Uptime.com. Take it away, Lucas.
Yeah, guys. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Yeah, so as Alex mentioned, I'm a member of the support team here at Uptime.com. If you submit a support ticket, you may see my name on a response, or maybe one of the other wonderful and talented support team members who gets to your question. But thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. And yes, the subject is, why is uptime important? First, let's talk about why uptime is important. Monitoring is crucial, as server downtime can severely impact a business's ability to provide services. If a server goes down, or if your website is down, whatever service you're running, you can't provide those services for your clients or customers to get their own work done. And if your admins or your engineers aren't aware of this downtime, problem quickly gets worse. It'll only escalate from there. Your support lines are loaded. You have to scramble to figure out what's actually going on. Very time consuming, potentially very expensive. So obviously uptime monitoring is very important. I think if you're in this webinar, you probably have a pretty good idea of why it's important already, but it's important to cover that basis. Also, oftentimes your uptime may be a part of an SLA, or a service level agreement. So if that SLA is not met, there may be consequences, there may be reimbursements that need to happen, or maybe contracts even lost. So meeting your SLAs obviously is a very important thing. And Uptime, we provide the tracking, the monitoring, the tools to help you ensure that you meet your SLAs. I did want to briefly mention the 5 nines, which is it's the industry gold standard in uptime monitoring, really. So it's an uptime or availability of 99.999%, which is as good as you can about realistically get. So we take that into account, and we really try to provide, as I mentioned, the tools and the monitoring services to help you achieve that if possible. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So the actual basics of uptime calculation, I won't bore you by reading out a bunch of numbers to you. I'm sure that you can see what's on the slide here. Just some basics. The total uptime percentage is calculated by dividing the uptime of your total monitoring period and multiplying that by 100 to receive your uptime percentage. Now that's for a single check or a single status page component. There's also global uptime, which is calculated by multiplying the total time with the count of checks are the components monitored. So global uptime is more of a big picture of all of your checks and your components, their performance as a whole, as opposed to one individual check or component. So for status pages, you may have a component that that goes into a maintenance mode. Say you have scheduled maintenance that's going to be performed on a component or a check at a predetermined time. Obviously, that needs to be included in the downtime calculation. So we don't want that time to be included. We want to make sure that our uptime is as accurate as possible. So that's one thing that's easily accessible within the UI in terms of defining maintenance periods to make sure that you get accurate calculations. So the downtime percentage, if we the method is actually fairly simple. It's the number of seconds that a server or resource was unavailable in a given time divided by the total number of seconds that the server or resource was being monitored, minus maintenance windows, obviously, as mentioned. So the resulting number that you would get is your downtime percentage, and then to find your uptime percentage, which is what we're most interested in, subtract the downtime percentage from 100. So that's a lot of numbers. I know I said I wasn't going to bore you with numbers, but just know that we handle all the math and science on the back end, but we do like to keep our customers informed of how these things are calculated. It's important to understand as a technical concept so that you can get the most out of your monitoring service. And there are also some other industry standard metrics and calculations, such as mean time between failures and mean time to repair. And you can extrapolate those metrics from what is provided by Uptime.com's data. So we'll move on to the next slide. So this is actually, I wanted to quickly point out, if you are adding a status page incident for, something like if there was a period of downtime and it needs to be defined as starting at a specific time and ending at a specific time, it is important, if it should be counted in your downtime, to check this box that's highlighted in this screenshot. This incident should count as downtime. If it's not checked, then the incident downtime may not be correctly reported. So that's a common issue that we see. So I just wanted to make a quick note on that one. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about some best practices in your check configuration. So you adjust check intervals for enhanced detection frequency. So the check interval is the number of times that a website or resource is pinged by each of the probe servers assigned to a check. So let's say, for example, you have a basic HTTPS check. It's configured to have an interval of 5 minutes, and it's being monitored from 3 locations. That means is that every 5 minutes, that server or that resource will be pinged by each of those locations and report its status. So you get a code back, a 200, a 404, exactly what the code is. So you can also alter the when you're altering or configuring your checks. Some checks benefit from a higher frequency. Some checks don't necessarily need as high a frequency. So something like a basic HTTPS check that performs just something that can indicate potentially serious issues that need a quick resolution. Let's say your entire website is down. That's something that needs a pretty quick response, and you need to be alerted to that in a pretty timely manner. So a check like that, you would want to run it pretty frequently. 1 minute is a common check interval for something like a basic HTTPS check. Other check types, like if you're checking your domain expiry or your SSL certificate to make sure they're not expired, those don't need to be run as frequently. Obviously, you're not going to have a lot of moment-to-moment change in something like your SSL certificate. So those can be run at a higher interval. And so a similar example would be a transaction check. You may not need to run a transaction check as frequently as sort of a basic HTTPS check, but a transaction check is generally something that tests some aspect of the user journey on your website, say filling out a form, going to a shopping cart, something like that. So if one of those aspects of the user journey is broken, you would want to be alerted to that in a pretty timely manner. maybe not as often as an HTTPS check, but 5 minutes is a good standard for transaction checks. We also offer quite a extensive list of probe server locations that you can assign to each check individually. So we recommend monitoring each check from at least 3 locations. So this reduces false positives, because if for some reason one probe server has some downtime and isn't available to get to your resource, you're not immediately seeing the check as going down, since you have 2 other locations monitoring that resource as well. You won't immediately get a down alert. So that decreases false positives. Using multiple locations also increases your geographical coverage. So monitoring your location from different geographical areas of the world will ensure that that users everywhere can access your resource. But you may also want to use locations strategically. Say your resource or your website is mostly used by customers in the UK, or maybe it's entirely based in the UK. Then obviously the UK and European probe locations would be most relevant to your monitoring use case. So we also recommend configuring your retries and sensitivity to minimize false positives. So you can determine the number of times that a probe server will retry once it fails, to ensure that you're not just getting a freak downtime alert that's not actually relevant to you, reducing false positives, and sensitivity. So obviously, if you have 3 locations monitoring your resource, you can set the sensitivity to, if you want it to only give you a down alert when all 3 locations fail, or maybe you want a down alert when 2 of the locations fail. You can configure that to your use case. Avoids unnecessary alarms, increases trust in the monitoring solution, make sure that you're only getting alerted when you really need to. So we do separate our check types into a few different types. We have at its core, we have basic checks and advanced checks. Basic checks are things like, the HTTPS check, and advanced checks are things like transaction checks, API checks, and custom webhooks. So our pricing plans are they're pretty flexible. Each plan does have a different does have a set amount of checks that come with each plan. You can always see that by visiting uptime.com/pricing. Everything is laid out very clearly, very easily there. And also, if you have any questions about pricing or a potential plan, you can get in contact with the support team or with my colleague Alex here on the customer success team. We'll direct your question as necessary, and we'll get you the answers you need. And also, there is an a la carte option where you have the ability to add self-service checks. So say you just need say you need 5 more HTTPS checks. As the account owner, you can go in and just add those checks to your plan. Self-service is completely done. Okay, next slide. So let's talk a bit about status pages and SLAs. Fun topics. So you can set an SLA. So again, SLA is service level agreement, on a per check basis. So say you have a check that needs 99.9% uptime. You can go ahead and set that in the configuration options for the check. Say you have a different check where the SLA is slightly different. You can go and configure that as well. So per check SLA configuration gives you the ability to determine what your SLA sensitivity is and where each check needs to be in terms of availability. Also, our status pages are a very powerful tool. You can display SLA statistics on those status pages so that whether it's for internal use or for public-facing use, users can go and see which components are up, which are down. They can be notified of any maintenance windows or incidents, and also see SLA statistics on those pages. So distinguishing between SLAs, so you have SLAs for individual check reports as well as for status page components for comprehensive monitoring. So you can differentiate between those as necessary. Maybe you only need you need a different SLA for a single check versus a component. You can differentiate between those things as needed. And that also allows you to emphasize and highlight your accurate SLA calculations by, again, excluding maintenance windows that obviously are known downtime that don't need to be accounted for in your downtime, your actual downtime percentage. So for SLA report fields, there is a include in metrics toggle button. It's a checkbox when you're editing a check. That will ensure that that check is included in any metrics and any calculations. So obviously you would need to include that if you want that check to be included in your calculations. And also, again, excluding them during maintenance windows. And you would also want to define all the fields and columns in the SLA report to ensure clarity and transparency in performance metrics. Okay, next slide. I think that's it for me. As Alex mentioned, feel free to add any questions in the Q&A section on Zoom. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about SLAs and uptime percentage. Hope it was enlightening. Take it away, Alex.
Thanks so much, Lucas. Appreciate you getting into the details there. Again, like you said, we have the Q&A section on the Zoom to answer any questions, which I'll get to shortly. We've also got in-depth documentation on all of the way that our calculations work, SLAs, status pages, all that stuff. I want to mention here specifically on this page that we do have a special bonus for any new members signing up for a free trial with this link, particularly right here. If you do sign up for a free trial with this link and then eventually subscribe, you will get a 10% discount for life from that point on. Let me talk really quickly about some of the additional some of the upcoming webinars that we've got here. We're aiming for one a month for the time being. So the next one is going to be March 26th. That topic will be why every SRE and DevOps beginner needs a status page. The one for April will be April 30th. This is about mobile apps and how to use those for website monitoring. And then on May 28th, we have the need for page speed monitoring for your website. So these are the upcoming ones. So keep that in mind. Mark these on your calendar, and we will see you there. So that concludes the main portion of our February webinar. This one, of course, was about how is uptime calculated. I will now get into some questions. First, does the gerbil have a name? So this is referring to our cute little mascot. It does indeed have a name. Its name is Gizmo. And this will be, we like to pepper Gizmo in to our marketing materials and stuff every now and then. If you come to one of the real life events or conferences that we're at, come by our booth and we may have a sticker for you. Yeah, exactly. He's not quite a gremlin, but he's a little nicer than that. But yeah, moving on to the next question. We've got a really good one here. I'll just read it for you directly and then I'll get into the answer. Assuming monitoring from cloud-based probe locations, not private location monitoring, how does Uptime distinguish between problems with the monitored service versus issues along the network path? An example, a bad route or DNS issue in a particular region of the country. So that's a great question. So first off, from the Uptime perspective, we are noting and we are alerting you that there is an error somewhere. Obviously, we will include a bit of technical information and troubleshooting ideas based on the error message that occurs. So you will be able to look into what is actually accompanying the alert in the alert details, and it will give you a hint as to what the underlying issue is. So if that's a basic 404 or something, then that's obviously an issue with the endpoint itself, with the service. But it may say, too many redirects, which may indicate something with the routing. But basically, we give you the stepping stone and the and the intuition to start investigating that, and then you on your side can configure exactly where the nature of this outage lies along your SLAs. So if you have a particular clause within your SLA that says, this excludes any, routing or DNS based outages, then you would be able to go in and ignore that alert, which would automatically remove it from the downtime calculation. So basically at the end of the day, we give you what we see, and then you go ahead and translate that into how it's relevant to your end users, to your SLA agreements, and how you guys need to report that externally or internally. So I hope that answered your question. If not, feel free to follow up, and I'll get back to you in an email. Looking at another question. Let's see. What export options are available for uptime data? So that's a good one. So we have a few. So obviously you can go into the check report page from the UI itself, and there's an option to download the data, the uptime data, as either a PDF or an Excel. That data will be based on the time window that you select. So if you say last week, or a very specific time window, then that will be the span of data that you will have there. Another option you have is you can export these metrics via one of our integrations to a third party, for instance, like Aria or some other services like that, and that can allow you to get some much more granular details that can be exported externally that way. And then finally, of course, we have a fully fledged REST API, which will allow you to extract that data as you need. You can have that on a recurring basis. You can have that done once off. Basically, end of the day, anything you can do in the UI, you can do in the API too. Awesome. All right, that looks like all the questions that we have today, and we are just 2 minutes under time. I want to thank you guys all for joining. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you guys again on March 26th to talk about status pages. All right. Have a great day, guys.